Again. Family, let me tell you something right now. Growth is not an event, it's a lifestyle. You don't develop yourself because you had one good day. You develop yourself because you made a decision to show up every single day when nobody's clapping, when nobody's watching, when nobody's saying your name. See, discipline is not glamorous. You don't wake up with applause. You wake up with an alarm clock. Again. You don't build greatness with ease. You build it with sweat, with struggle, with staying in the fight when your feelings have already quit. Some of you are waiting for a big moment, but I came to tell you the small moments repeated daily become the big moments. And the grind you don't want, the habits you don't like, and the discipline you don't feel like doing. Those are the very things that create the life you keep dreaming about. Again, you can't just want the outcome. You've got to love the process. Because if you don't feed your mind every day, you'll starve your future. Again, if you don't stretch your spirit every day, you'll shrink your potential. And if you don't sharpen your skills every day, again, life will hand you opportunities you're not equipped to handle. Listen, it's not about who applauds you. Again, it's about who you become when nobody's watching. It's not about the mountaintop moments. It's about the stair steps of consistency. It's not about motivation that fades. It's about commitment that stays. So, develop yourself day in and day out, not just when it's easy. Again, not just when it feels good, but when it's hard, when it's dry, when it's lonely, when it's quiet. Began. Because the life you're dreaming of is waiting on the version of you that only shows up when you train yourself daily. Again, growth is not something you check off like a box on your to-do list. It's not a weekend seminar, a single book, or one powerful moment that flips everything around. No, growth is a way of living. Again, it's how you choose to wake up every morning and approach your life. When you see growth as a lifestyle, again, you understand that there is no finish line. You don't arrive, you evolve. Every day is a fresh opportunity to stretch a little further. Again, to think a little deeper, to refine a little more of who you are. The problem is too many people treat growth like a one-time event. They think, if I just get that degree, if I just attend that conference, if I just read that one book, then I'll be set. But life doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't stay with you unless you keep feeding it. Again, you don't stay strong because you lifted weights once. You stay strong because you keep showing up at the gym. Again, you don't stay sharp because you studied hard one season. You stay sharp because you keep learning, keep questioning, keep stretching. When growth is a lifestyle, you stop looking for shortcuts. You stop expecting instant transformation. And you start valuing consistency over intensity. You recognize that the small, ordinary choices you make in private, what you read, how you think, and who you listen to, how you discipline yourself, those choices create the extraordinary results people will one day see in public. Greatness doesn't come from a single breakthrough. It comes from repeated breakthroughs that happen because you never stopped growing. Again. And here's the beautiful thing: when you live with growth as a lifestyle, you stop comparing your journey to everyone else's. You realize that your race isn't against them. It's against the version of you that stayed the same yesterday. You wake up and say, today, I refuse to be stuck in who I was yesterday. That's what living a growth lifestyle looks like. It's not about being better than others. It's about being better than your old self, step by step, day by day. You see, growth as a lifestyle changes how you see failure, too. Again, failure stops being final because you know you're still in motion. If growth is daily, then mistakes aren't the end. They're feedback. They're data. They're lessons you can fold into tomorrow's effort. When growth is a lifestyle, nothing is wasted. Even the setbacks become setups for the next step forward. You stop fearing failure and start using it as fuel because you know, you're still growing. you're still moving and you're still becoming. Motivation feels good in the moment, but it doesn't last. Motivation is like a spark. It ignites excitement, but if you don't have discipline, that fire will burn out before it ever lights the path ahead again. Discipline is different. Discipline is the steady flame that keeps burning when your feelings grow cold. Discipline doesn't ask you, again, do you feel like it today? Discipline says, what show up anyway? And that's why discipline is louder than motivation, because it speaks even when your emotions have gone silent. Think about how many people start the year motivated. The gyms are full, the journals are open, the vision boards are decorated. But by February, again, the energy fades. Why? Because motivation depends on moods, and moods are unstable. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't care if it's January 1st or the middle of July. Discipline says, I'm here, I'm committed, I'm consistent. Motivation starts the race, but discipline is the one that crosses the finish line. Discipline is what builds trust in yourself again. Anyone can do something once, but can you keep doing it when it's not exciting anymore? Can you keep training when no one is cheering again? Can you keep showing up when the results are slow? That's what separates the temporary from the timeless. Again, discipline is not about feelings, it's about faithfulness. And when you practice faithfulness day after day, again, you begin to trust yourself in a way motivation never could. Motivation gives you a reason, but discipline gives you results. You don't remember the days you felt motivated. You remember the days you showed up when you didn't feel like it, and you saw the payoff later. Discipline is the builder of habits, and habits build the future. The real champions in any field are not the ones who always felt motivated, They're the ones who had the discipline to keep working while others quit. Motivation may start the conversation, but discipline writes the story again. And let's be clear, discipline is not glamorous. It's often boring. It's waking up early, practicing the same routine, saying no when your feelings scream yes. Discipline is quiet but powerful. Motivation shouts, do it now! But discipline whispers again, do it again tomorrow. And that whisper, repeated day after day, ends up speaking louder than any roar of motivation. Discipline is the daily voice that keeps you on track, even when every other voice tells you to stop. We underestimate the power of small things again. We want the big breakthrough, the overnight success, the dramatic change. But life doesn't usually work like that again. Life rewards consistency over time. The small daily actions, the little habits you practice when nobody's paying attention, they start stacking. They start compounding. And before you realize it, those small choices shape the direction of your entire future. Think about water dripping on a rock. One drop means nothing. 2 drops change nothing. But thousands of drops over time carve into stone again. That's what small actions do to your life. Reading for 10 minutes a day might not feel life-changing today, but in a year, that's hours of wisdom shaping your mind. Saving a small amount of money might not look like much today, but in 10 years, it builds financial freedom. Small daily actions don't scream for attention, but they quietly transform everything. The challenge is, most people quit before they see the results. They think this isn't working. It's too slow again. Nothing's changing, but that's the deception of growth. Change is happening, even when it's invisible. Seeds don't sprout the day you plant them. Muscles don't grow the first time you lift a weight. Character doesn't form the first time you make a disciplined choice. But over time, little by little, those small daily actions accumulate into massive transformation. When you understand the principle of compounding, you stop despising the small again. You stop saying, it's just one day, it doesn't matter. Because one day does matter. Skipping one day leads to skipping 2. Keeping one day leads to keeping 2. And soon, the momentum of your daily actions carries you further than motivation ever could. The small things are never small, they are seeds. And seeds over time turn into harvests. And here's the truth. The life-changing results you want won't come from doing something big once. They'll come from doing something small consistently again. The great authors didn't write a book in a day. They wrote a page daily. The great athletes didn't become champions overnight. They trained relentlessly, day by day. The great leaders didn't develop wisdom in a weekend. They made small choices to learn, to listen, to grow over years. Again. That's the hidden power of small daily actions. They don't just add up, they multiply until your life looks nothing like it used to. Again, we live in a culture obsessed with outcomes. Everyone wants the highlight reel, the trophy, the applause. Again. The moment where the spotlight shines and the crowd cheers. But here's the truth. If you don't fall in love with the process, you'll never reach the outcome. The outcome is the reward, but the process is the path. And the path is where you'll spend most of your time. If you can't love the daily grind, you'll never survive long enough to experience the victory. The process is often unglamorous. It's early mornings, late nights, long hours, and repetitive steps. Began. It's doing the same thing again and again until it becomes part of who you are. Again. And that's where most people quit, because the process feels ordinary while the outcome looks extraordinary. Began. But those who learn to love the process understand that the ordinary is what produces the extraordinary. Every champion, every leader began. Every success story was forged in the unseen hours of process. Loving the process means finding joy in progress, not just perfection. It's celebrating the small wins, the lessons learned, the tiny steps forward. It's realizing that each day you commit to the process, you're building something inside of you that no one can take away. The outcome may give you recognition, but the process gives you resilience. Again. The outcome may give you a moment, but the process gives you a mindset. And the mindset is what will carry you through every season of life. When you love the process, you stop rushing. You stop trying to skip steps. You stop looking for shortcuts. Again. Because you understand the value of every stage. You understand that the struggle is shaping you. The discipline is molding you. And the repetition is strengthening you. You can't microwave mastery, and you can't fast forward growth. Again. The process is not punishment, it's preparation. And if you embrace it, it will give you far more than the outcome ever could. Here's the secret. Again. The outcome is temporary, but the process is permanent. The applause fades, the trophies gather dust. Again. The spotlight moves on. But who you became in the process will stay with you for the rest of your life. Again. That's why you can't just chase the result. You have to fall in love with the process. Again. Because it's in the process that you discover your identity, your strength, your endurance, and your true potential. Again. The process is where the real work and the real growth happens. Your mind is the soil of your life. Again. And whatever you plant in it grows into the fruit you live with tomorrow. If you feed your mind with negativity, distractions, and shallow input, again, your future will reflect that. If you feed your mind with wisdom, vision, knowledge, and truth, your future will expand. The mind is like a muscle. It grows stronger or weaker depending on what you put into it daily. That's why you can't afford to neglect it. Again. Every day you choose to feed your mind, you're building the capacity for your future. Too many people think education ends when school ends. But life doesn't reward diplomas. It rewards development. The world is constantly changing, and if you stop learning, you start shrinking again. Feeding your mind daily doesn't just mean reading books. It means exposing yourself to voices that stretch you, ideas that challenge you again, and knowledge that equips you. Because if you're not intentionally feeding your mind, the world will feed it for you, and it will feed you junk. Think about this. Your thoughts are the architects of your actions. You cannot live above the level of your thinking. If your mind is small, your life will be small. If your mind is limited, your opportunities will be limited. But when you expand your thinking, you expand your possibilities. Feeding your mind daily is not optional, it's essential. Every podcast, every page, every conversation with a mentor, every moment of reflection is fuel for the future you want to build. And here's the thing, you don't notice the starvation immediately. You can skip feeding your mind for a day or a week and feel fine. But over time, the starvation shows up in missed opportunities, in poor decisions, in a lack of creativity, in a limited perspective. Your mind, left unfed, becomes malnourished, and a malnourished mind cannot produce a prosperous future. The gaps you see in your life often point back to the gaps in what you've been feeding your mind. But when you feed your mind daily, you step into every situation with more clarity, more wisdom, and more confidence. You're not just reacting, you're prepared. You're not just surviving, you're building. Feeding your mind daily ensures that when opportunity knocks, you have the knowledge, the perspective, and the courage to open the door. And that's why your future depends on the investment you make in your mind today. What you feed it will determine what you fight with tomorrow.